Welcome back. We're going to try episode 2 for post-secondary transition. I am going to introduce the host. My name is Patrick Cadigan. I am a teacher in the Howard County Public School Systems in Maryland. And who is my co-host?
I am Meghan Smallwood, and I am the transition specialist, one of many, in Howard County Public School Systems.
Excellent. All right. So, once again, the idea behind this podcast, and it has been something that we've been working towards for a while. We're going to start initially probably around 15 minutes every 2 weeks, definitely not more than 30 minutes. Eventually, we're planning on introducing families because that's the meat of transitions, right? It's being able to help out families. But we're also planning, if it works out, to have service providers and other teachers because everybody's experiences are really unique, aren't they?
Right.
So, to start us off with, Meghan, what does post-secondary transition mean? Let's give the families a definition.
Sure. So transition happens a lot throughout the years. Post-secondary transition is the focus, mostly between ages 14 through 21, when you're really looking at that long-term goal. What do you want them to be doing after 21, which is different for everybody, and it's completely individualized, but focusing on the milestones to help prepare for that time frame, doing the research, using the resources at your expense, including the transition specialists and other teachers in Howard County or wherever you may be. And just thinking about what you want for the future once the school bus stops coming. So that's our focus.
Good. Well, thank you. I think that'll be helpful.
And
All right.
There's a lot of information within that, but yeah.
Yes, and that is something that I am discovering as well. So, all of this is predicated around a website that Meghan put together.
Put together.
No, I've only been helping with the visual, but if at any time you have any questions or things that you're interested in around transition, please go visit www.postsecondarytransition.com. The site is designed and intended around families and trying to give them the information that they need.
Right.
And it is definitely a work in progress, but I think we've done pretty well.
Yeah, and I think we're constantly adding and updating information as it comes out or as new resources come up, so that you have the most current information.
And please, when you look at the site, if there's something that you're interested in or some challenge or problem that you found, please let us know.
Yep.
All right. So I have been dreading this part because now I get to
talk about yourself.
Yeah. But boy, I don't know what questions to ask. Meghan, what questions do I ask?
Well, how did you get interested in special ed, or how did you start out?
So I would say that from a very early age, I was always, anytime I would come across people who were unique or different from me, I was always interested in that. And I never shied away from people who had unique needs. In fact, if anything, I probably gravitated towards them more than anybody else. So that was just something that I always did. And this is going to sound utterly ridiculous, but one of my favorite shows when I was growing up was Highway to Heaven, and Michael Landon, walking across America, like helping people out. But that notion of helping people and being able to help. And I always love the episodes, again, where, where people were being helped out that needed extra help. So, and then as I was getting older, I started to find volunteer programs or like basically opportunities to work with kids with special needs. So I remember when I was in my early 20s, I went to a camp for kids with cancer. And then I started working, I found another camp for students or kids with muscular dystrophy. I did that for a couple of years. I really enjoyed that. And then I transitioned into the working world, so to speak, right? So I went to work for a friend of mine and became a construction site safety consultant. Did that for a really long time. But even when I was doing classes for that, I was finding that I was always gravitating towards, again, people that needed extra help. So like even, in those classes. So I guess at some point I kind of hit that plateau where my wife and I had a conversation, and I was like, well, I really like working with kids and specifically kids with needs. But if I'm going to do that, I need a college degree because I didn't have one. So we made that, we had that discussion, and I ended up going to Towson for my undergrad. Boy, that was a lot of fun.
Nice. Yeah. I bet.
So that was 4.5 years. And the reason that I say that is because I went into it, oh my gosh, let me think. I was probably in my late 30s. So this was essentially like a second or third career for me, because I was also an actor in the early 2000s. And
no kidding.
Yeah, I didn't do much with it, which is to say that I did a lot of theater. I did a lot of touring companies, which I enjoyed. But I have always kind of like my main job was when I went to work in construction site safety, which is to say that had that structure that someone like me needs. Acting is a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it, but you intrinsically have to be disciplined and motivated and and a good business person. And in my early 20s, I really struggled with that. So, yeah. And again, going into the school system, and I think it was interesting because when we were on the opposite side of this and you were doing the interview, you had talked about how, sometimes the challenges within the school system is, following along in that structure, which I also tend to balk at. But for myself, kind of going back and recognizing that I probably need that structure, if only a little bit. But yeah. I finished out my undergrad in elementary and special education at Towson, came into the work in the school system, and then went back to Towson and got my master's in special education with a focus in autism studies, which I always find really interesting because being as that my focus was in autism, but I've actually struggled to work with students with autism, which is to say that since getting my degree, I haven't had too many students on my caseload with autism. So, but that community has always been, I've just always gravitated towards that community. Yeah. So it's interesting how that works out.
So how many years have you been in Howard County?
Oh man, what am I? I think I'm working on 6 now. I think I'm going into my 6th year.
So you started at Cedar Lane in Howard County.
I did. I was there for the first 2 years, and then transitioned out, and then went to Glenwood Middle, and that's where I am currently. And so we'll see. We'll see how that continues to work out.
So did your interest in transition come from the master's program? Because I know that's where you took a class.
That's right. And we had kind of talked about that, didn't we?
Yeah.
Right. So what? I want to say in my third year, not even my third year. Third year in master's program, because it was a 3-year program. Right towards the end there, there was a transition class, and it was an excellent teacher. Actually, Doug DeHaan, he works at the Huseman Center in Towson.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I know the husbands.
Oh man, and
Yeah.
that whole program.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you want to talk about intimidating, because Doug, if I remember correctly, he was in the year before us, but from the time that he graduated, he went to work at Huseman Center, and I mean, he just the guy just knew everything. So he was really intimidating. But during that class, we were working on, I was struck by how much information was out there, but it was all over the place.
Yeah.
And me being me, I'm like, oh, no, this is too much information. It needs to be more simple. And so that was kind of my interest in it. And there was always something new to learn.
Yeah.
And because you could dive into, let's say, DDA, Department of Developmental Disabilities, or then you had DOORS. There was always like those avenues. It was like you were going down a rabbit hole. And so that interested me.
That's the ongoing battle too, because I feel like every year we sit down to kind of map it out. Okay, how can we make this easier for parents? But there's so much information. It's hard to make it simpler. It's just, I think organizing it the way that you've done on the site, just this is DDA and here's everything, because you also don't want to just exclude information for somebody because you don't think it could be relevant when it could be. I don't want to say, no, this doesn't pertain to you when I don't know. It could.
I think the other thing was that because it's that rabbit hole, and making it easier, it's like the families are always going to be doing something new, and so like hopefully what we're doing will.
I think that's why I love my job too, because I feel like every year, I'm going into my 6th year now as transition specialist. Every year I feel like I learn something new from one of the pathways a parent is taking, or what they're trying to do for their child. Something new comes up and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that, but now I can share it with another family who could benefit from it. So
so hopefully there will be nuggets of information kind of as we move along, right? One of the things though, and I think you and I have had this conversation before, that struck me is that when I went to the internet and tried to find out information about this, there really wasn't a lot there, and I found that curious, but I discovered it's because everybody's experiences are so unique, right? Like I'm sure that each family's experience is going to be unique for them. And I think I came to that conclusion because that was one of those things that I discovered about Cedar Lane, right? When I was working there, was that each individual classroom was essentially its own island, because each classroom had its own unique needs. And it took me a while to understand that, and
it changes every year.
And
but you're
changes,
right.
Yes. And
they're so unique that when I do hear a family, I'm like, wait, I don't have an exact, replica of what you're going through, but I know a family that similarly had that, issue or concern, and this is what they did. So at least it gives them a path to follow, because I know a lot of times when the families do go to the internet, they don't even know what to search.
Yeah.
Or, they search for something and it just brings up an overwhelming amount of information that has nothing to do with what they're actually looking for. So being able to help direct them to the right resource to at least start, or the right person, is, part of my goal.
Is going to be a big step. So, and hopefully the information that we pass on both in this cast, but then also from the website, hopefully that'll facilitate something. And and that's why I look forward to the feedback, because that'll
absolutely.
really
and I think the feedback can also drive some of the podcasts too. If there's a burning question, that they want to know or have us talk about, there's many people who probably could, benefit from hearing that too.
Yeah, I agree. So with that being said, I think we're finished with episode 2.
Look at that.
All right. Well, good deal. Well, then by the next episode, I think that we'll start to sit down and actually talk about the nitty gritty, so to speak, right? Like we're going to cover, as I'm pulling up, what secondary transition means and what some of the information that families can look forward to and how to get to it. So we'll see. Brilliant.
Awesome.
All right. So finishing out on episode 2. Thanks for listening, and hopefully we'll hear you for episode 3.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.